Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to another session of our weekly office hours. Ask me anything about big data by us at Big Data Boutique. We have today Anton, who is joining us to talk about Kafka and Kafka Streams and do a short comparison between Kafka Streams and other streaming platforms. So just to remind everyone, just after the session, it's about 15-20 minutes talk by Anton. We are going to hold an open Q&A, and that open Q&A is going to be open to you all. The Q&A will basically be using the chat that you see here in YouTube. You can send us questions live over there, or you can just ping us on YouTube, on Twitter, or via email. You have the details here. And by that, let's start. Anton, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Anton Rodriguez. I am a data engineer specialized in real-time platforms. I have been developing real-time services for a while. And today I'm going to speak about Kafka Streams. The idea is to compare Kafka Streams with other popular frameworks like Flink and Spark and to see the differences. But also to introduce Kafka Streams, which can be new for most of you. So let's start with the typical architecture we can find in any real-time service. Okay, so basically we have users using an application, and that application is storing or reading information from a database. Okay, so the first integration we can do here is that the same application writing events to Kafka to be used later for an analytical system, for reporting, or to be stored in other databases, replacing, for example, ETL, a batch ETL. Okay, this is a very typical, good approach with a lot of advantages. So we have the events of the user behavior or whatever information we require in Kafka, and we can start to use it. Another approach is to receive that information from the database with something called change data capture. Okay, the idea here is each time something happens, something changes in the database, an event is generated and stored in Kafka. This has a lot of advantages. When we are working with legacy applications, we are not easy to modify them, so they cannot publish them directly to Kafka, maybe because they're running in all versions of Java, or because we don't feel confident enough to modify them. We can use this change data capture to retrieve information from them without modifying the original application. It's also a very performant way to extract information because it doesn't increase the load in the database too much. Okay, so it may have sense in some particular cases. Once we have that information in Kafka, we can start to processing that information, and for that we typically use a real-time framework. Some possibilities are Flink and Spark, as we see here, which basically read from Kafka, store that information or processes in a database, or it can store it again in Kafka to be used directly from another application. Okay, so for example, if we have a reporting application like RPP2 here, it can read directly from Kafka or from the database the events processes by Flink or Spark, update dashboard for reporting for our business users. That's just an example, but it's a quite typical architecture. And here we see the first big difference. Flink, Spark, they run services, they run in their own clusters, but Kafka Streams is just a library. Okay, so we can just put the library in our application, and our application is going to be able to process and to manage real-time events, okay, and to read and write to Kafka in a very easy way. If we scale our applications with more instances, we're also going to be able to scale our real-time processing capabilities. Okay, so this is for me probably the biggest difference between these both the difference between these want to have a good latency, for example. There are some things you can tweak. So most of the things, or many things I worked with in the past, when they start working with Kafka, they think Kafka is like a MQ. They used to work ActiveMQ or RabbitMQ, and they think Kafka is exactly the same, and it isn't. It's just a totally different animal. Okay, it's really good in some things. MQs is not so good, and it's really bad in things MQ are really good. Okay, so you cannot use Kafka as you typically use MQ, and that's one of the big fails I usually see in organizations. You really need those things to have some support and to teach them what are the differences and what they have to do. Okay, I think that's a very important thing. And the last challenge, I think it's the governance of Kafka. Okay, if you don't have a very good guidelines on how to use Kafka in your organization and just let Kafka open, teams are going to start to create topics to read, to write to Kafka, and then when you want to do a capacity planning, it's going to be a nightmare. Okay, you really need from the very beginning to do all that work to make sure the topics are created following a nomenclature, the schemas are used properly, you are having quotas for your consumers and producers, all that type of stuff. So you make sure Kafka is going to scale in the long term, because technically it's able to scale very in a very good way, but if you don't do a proper governance of it, it's not going to be so easy. So for me, those are the three legs I really focus when I work in a Kafka project, and the things where what I see most organizations failing when they start to work with Kafka.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've been experiencing the same with customers that we're working with. Kafka, we often actually recommend not to use Kafka if you need some sort of a queue system. But Kafka is a big word, and everybody wants to take a part in it. But in the end of the day, if you need a queue system, and a queue system can answer your requirements, so RabbitMQ is just as good. If you do need to replay events and do a lot more complicated things, or you have a crazy throughput, then Kafka may be worth the overhead, and that I agree. So I see we're kind of out of questions from people. So Anton, thank you very much. It was really educating. And hopefully we'll have you again soon on more topics, not only Kafka.
Okay, that would be fantastic. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, sure. Bye-bye, everyone.
My